New York City public housing is now under private management in some cases, and they found that the private managers evict at a much, much higher rate than the public managers did. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's coming out of the great city of New York. And guess what? It has to do with their public housing program. Obviously, I am not a fan, okay? It's a socialist program. It's destined to fail because, simply put, bureaucrats, they don't know anything about operating a business. That's why I always think that, hey, private investors, private landlords, we are the ones who actually will help make housing more affordable. We're the ones who are going to be able to provide housing and make it profitable all at the same time. But you have to loosen the reins on us. You cannot control every single thing that's happening, okay? And the only thing you're really doing by putting all these stupid rules, laws, and regulations in place is making things worse. So in this case, we were talking about the New York City Housing Authority and I believe they have hundreds of thousands of rental units, okay? And it's absolutely insane how poorly run the whole thing was, okay? The places are falling apart. They are just dilapidated, and they cannot afford to do any of the repairs because guess what? They don't expect the tenants to pay any rent. They just say, oh, we're not going to evict you. We're just going to allow you to continue to stay here and not pay us rent. So how long do you think it's going to be before a lot of people figure this garbage out and then also decide not to pay? It's not going to take very long at all. And the result is you have a huge, huge amount of past rent that's due. You have a huge amount of just repairs and capital expenditures that have not taken place. And, they decided, hey, we're going to pass this off to private companies because we can't manage this. We're a government. It's costing us way too much, and we're not able to keep these places maintained. So they basically sold the rights to manage these properties to companies. And these companies, when they're running it, well, they are filing a lot more evictions than the public the public managers were doing. The government managers, they don't care about profit. They work off of taxpayer money. But these private companies, they do work off of profit, and they have to file evictions, otherwise they're not going to get paid. So yeah, they're surprised. They act like they're surprised that, hey, yeah, these private companies are jumping in here and filing a lot more evictions. Well, it's not surprising at all. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So do you think that this is going to make any impact whatsoever on the New York City Housing Authority? Now, let me tell you right now what my opinion is of the whole thing. I believe they should sell all the properties to private investors, okay? That's my personal opinion. They should sell the properties to private investors, nonprofits, or whatever, whoever wants to buy it, and then allow those individual companies to set the rents, file evictions as they see fit. Now, if they want to make it so that these are like low income places where everybody in them is on Section 8, that's good. But private management alone is not going to resolve these problems. The problem is still going to lie in the fact that the government actually owns these buildings. And even if the private company wants to make positive changes that will benefit everyone, the government will not let them do it, okay? So it's idiotic, in my opinion, that these places are, like government public housing is 100% failure. So I think that private management, it's a good first step, but they got to sell these properties. Okay. Anyway, let me get into this article. I'm going to tell you about the details of what's going on. This article is coming from thegothamist.com, and it says, evictions rise at New York City public housing complexes under private management, a report finds. This shouldn't surprise anybody, okay? But anyway, let me continue with the article. The private companies that run dozens of New York City public housing campuses are evicting tenants at a much higher rate than the New York City Housing Authority, according to a report from the city's comptroller's office. Auditors working for the comptroller, Brad Lander, found the eviction rate across roughly 16,000 New York City Housing Authority apartments run by private companies was more than double the rate in the rest of the public housing system during the last fiscal year, which ran from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th of this year. Auditors found the private companies evicted tenants from 1 of every 200 apartments they run. In contrast, New York City Housing Authority evicted tenants from roughly 1 in every 866 apartments. Both numbers sat below the citywide eviction rate of about 1 in every 166 apartments. So the private company, they evict on a rate that is slightly higher than the overall citywide rate of 166, 1 out of every 166 apartments, right? So they evict about 1 out of every 200 according to this article, right? So it's slightly higher. But if you look at the numbers for how many evictions were filed by the New York City Housing Authority, the buildings ran by them, it's like 1 out of 866 apartments, a rate that is less than a quarter of that of the private companies and of what the overall rate is for the rest of the city, which tells you that the housing authority doesn't care about evicting tenants who are not paying their rent. And I say that specifically because 90% plus of all evictions are for non-payment of rent. It's pretty obvious that if they aren't collecting rent and then not evicting the people who are not paying the rent, then they are going to be losing a crap ton of money. So obviously, this is a failing system. Okay, the system does not work. That is why they turned it over to private management in the first place. Yet they write articles like this because look, these private companies, they don't care about the individual. They don't care. They're just evicting people left and right. They are still evicting people at a lower rate than the rest of the private companies, okay? Because they at least have government funds coming in to help supplement their income. They're just operating things in a more efficient manner. That's what private companies do. We operate in a more efficient manner than the government ever could. There's so many layers of bureaucracy. There's so many, different check marks in. You got to inform this manager and this department and that department to get anything done, that it makes the process super slow. It makes it impossible, okay? And that is what we see when we're talking about something like the New York City Housing Authority. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And the only real solution is to destroy this socialist system, destroy it completely, right? Remove all barriers and let the private capitalists come in there and fix the problem, because they are the only ones, people who are motivated by making money. They can figure it out. I guarantee it, okay? Won't be easy, and it would require massive changes that a lot of people, they're going to protest. They're going to be like, hey, I'm going to lose my cheap apartment, my cheap rent forever. It's like you're living in a roach-infested hellhole, and you're complaining that you're going to lose it. Hey, whatever, okay? Let me continue. The same private management company started eviction proceedings against nearly 1 in 10 households living in these apartments during the 2023 calendar year, according to the report. Most of the cases were for non-payment of rent and did not result in final evictions. The New York City Housing Authority has turned 24,584 apartments at 69 campuses over to private managers through a program known as Permanent Affordability Commitment Together, or PACT. The arrangement changes the source of federal funding for each apartment to Section 8 vouchers, which come with more money, allows private companies to issue bonds and take out loans for renovations, and puts these companies in charge of repairs and rent collection, right? So yeah, they're basically, they moved it from a fully government owned and operated facility over to a private company now running it using Section 8 vouchers for all the people who are living inside of it, right? And this is much more profitable, or much more sustainable, they say. But keep in mind, whether the government is paying for the entire building through, direct funding, or whether they are getting the money from the federal government and getting vouchers, this is all government operated, okay? This is 100% still a government housing complex. They're just using different funding sources, and they're hiring a private company to run it. So, this is still a 100% socialist system that I do not agree with, but it's a small step into the right direction. Okay. Now, like I said, They need to sell these buildings off. They need to give up complete control of it and see what happens. Renters are not going to be able to pay more rent than, you know, whatever they want. That's the thing. You know, like they act like, oh, the landlords will be able to raise the rent. Like they have tenants in there paying $1,000 a month now. The landlords will raise the rent to $10,000 a month. Every single unit would be sitting empty if nobody has $10,000 a month to pay it. Okay? People can only pay what they can afford to pay and what they're willing to pay for the area or whatever. So, you know, the myth, it's a complete myth that landlords are going to be able to raise the rents to whatever and then tenants are all going to end up homeless. It's idiotic. So I think that private investment, private, you know, like allowing them to raise rents and being able to do the maintenance with the rental income and rent increases, I think that would be the best solution to all this. So anyway, what do you think? Okay. Do you think this private management solution, do you think this is going to make any difference? I don't. I really don't. I think that these properties, they're destined to fail. It's destined to fail, and they're not going to see any real change until they get rid of them and then move this back over to where private landlords are operating them. I am holding on to it.